For my presentation, I have chosen to focus on the Silent No More Foundation, which is geared towards workplace violence, specifically in the healthcare setting. The foundation has three goals. It's to prevent violence against healthcare workers, to try to promote legislation that will increase consequences for patients or families that assault healthcare workers, and to help provide support after the fact, both for the healthcare workers and for their employers, and to kind of help prevent retaliation against those who report violence, as this can reflect negatively on HCAHPS scoring for hospitals. The campaign actually initially began as a Healthcare Workers Protection Act. There was a fundraiser right around the time they changed their name from the Healthcare Workers Protection Act to the Silent No More Foundation. One of the problems with this name change is that there's actually another organization that's also a nonprofit. It's an activist organization called Silent No More. That's actually the Silent No More Awareness, which is an anti-abortion group. And if you Google Silent No More, you primarily find, for your first couple hits on Google search, you find the Anti-Abortion Awareness Campaign and not the Healthcare Violence Foundation. Because of this late name change, the Silent No More handle was not available either. That also belongs to the anti-abortion group. They did a fundraiser that really wasn't that successful. There was a whopping 27 items sold with $210 raised. The Silent No More Foundation uses 3 social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They actually stopped using Instagram about a year ago. Facebook, they don't have really a whole lot of following on their public page. As an individual, I have over 1,000 followers. As a nonprofit organization, they only have 5,000. Their closed Facebook page actually has significantly more members, almost double. That's geared more towards people that actually work in healthcare areas. If you compare that to a key influencer, which ZDoggMD, Zubayd Damania is his real name. That's actually how I found about the Silent No More Foundation. He has 1.3 million followers compared to their 5,000. He has significantly more Facebook posts. His reach extends way beyond theirs on all 3 platforms that the Silent No More Foundation has a presence on. He also has a couple other platforms, the Apple Podcast and YouTube, that they don't even touch at all. If you look at the difference in followers by channel, you can really see the difference in reach that ZDoggMD has versus the Silent No More Foundation. I've chosen to kind of compare ZDoggMD to the Silent No More Foundation because with them being a nonprofit, they want people to take action. It's hard to gauge the specific actions that they're wanting people to take. It's difficult to tell if legislation passed because of the foundation's efforts or not, but I think comparing them to another activist who has similar goals as theirs is the best way to really tell what their reach is and how their social media campaign is working, since they don't really have revenues or ROI that we can look at and compare to their social media activity. Another interesting thing that we see here is a lot of these social media followers are not really interactive. They're lurkers. ZDoggMD talks about when he went on a vacation to the Grand Canyon, went to do some hiking, and in the first 5 minutes he was recognized by multiple people, and he was really, really surprised because he's not getting a whole lot of interaction from people, but people they're watching his videos, which that lurker kind of makes sense if you think about how healthcare individuals have to really watch and do a lot of observation. If you look at how active they are on the different channels, Facebook, without being an admin or having access to paid social media analytics software, it's difficult to get those numbers. But if we just compare Instagram and Twitter, we see a huge difference in the activity that the foundation has versus our influencer. Obviously, they don't have any activity at all on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts. So not only do we have a greater reach, we also have greater interaction. When you look at the number of Facebook posts per week, this is over the week preceding this assignment, the Silent No More Foundation has 27 posts versus ZDoggMD has almost 3 times that at 81. Twitter, the Silent No More Foundation actually has almost the same amount of posts of Twitter posts as they do Facebook posts. They're basically duplicating their posts. They're not really tailoring it to either channel like ZDoggMD does. So for their About Us section, they list 3 different priorities. The first of those is education, advocacy, and awareness. When you compare those goals to their Facebook post for the last week, There's a couple Facebook posts that actually specifically target this. They actually have the greatest interaction on their case reports and their statistics. When you look at call to action reports, there's almost no comments at all. But yet you look at their case reports, a single case report had 109 shares. So people are definitely interested in talking about what happened to somebody else and about how that happened to them too. There was a single post on prevention, and this was more, hey, there's an article out here, this is something you could take to your administrator. Only 15 shares, so really not getting a whole lot of activity on the prevention front. Legislation awareness is a big push of theirs, especially over this last week. There are several bills that are pending both at the federal and at the state level in a couple different states. And this is really what they're getting people to try to do. So ZDoggMD actually posts the same thing multiple times throughout the week. A lot of his posts are duplicate posts. Sometimes he'll post them 3, 4, 5 times, which if you look at your target demographic, these people do shift work. So your healthcare workers are working, 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts, sometimes up to 72, even 96-hour shifts at sometimes. So if you post something on one day, there's a high chance that if that's a busy day, they're not going to see it. The one time that they did post something multiple times that the Silent No More Foundation reposted is Federal Bill 1309 and 851. There's 4 posts, including a suggested scripted contact that you can send to your legislative officials, but all 4 of those posts are on the same day. So they're really not getting a whole lot of penetration. So if you're not on Facebook on those days, you're not going to see those posts. Versus ZDoggMD having the same post spread out over a couple days, he's really getting a lot better penetration of his target segment than the Silent No More Foundation is. That call to action, the Silent No More Foundation, if you look on their webpage, is very, very vague. Only one of their Facebook posts actually has something specific for you to do, and that's the scripted post, and that was only posted on one day. Here's a video where we kind of goes over a case report and what he's done to help that nurse and what he wants his viewers to do to help that nurse.
This nurse was kidnapped, tortured, raped, and shot in her own hospital where she was working by an escaped prisoner who was supposed to be guarded and shackled and wasn't. It generated so much outrage, but more importantly, it generated this idea that we are devalued, that we are expected to give and give and give and give, but never take a thought for our own safety or our own well-being or our own concerns. And this struck a chord with me personally. It struck a chord with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And I've gotten so many messages from frontline caregivers, doctors, nurses, everybody who takes care of patients, who touches patients, about how they've been the victims of verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, threats, and it's all been swept under the rug. And this can't continue. So when all this happened, I promised you guys then, I said, I will try to figure out if we can set up a P.O. box so we can at least send this anonymous nurse some support. And when I made that promise, people emailed me and said, you know what, we're close to her, we can set it up. And this is what ended up happening. Her sister, who is also an emergency room nurse, they are 10 months apart. And I'm telling you all this because both of them gave me permission to tell this story. Otherwise, I would never say it publicly. And I would never say it publicly even if they gave me permission and I didn't think any good was going to come of it. But I think that we need to talk about this story because we need to stand up. And this cannot be accepted. Now, and the heroism that she displayed cannot be.
We look at that video and you look at his call to action. He has specific things that he wants his viewers to do. He uses specific terms. He identifies with them. These are things that we're not seeing in the Silent No More Foundation posts. He's a human being. He's connecting with you on that human level. And with the static posts that Silent No More Foundation is making, they're not really connecting with that. This video alone had over 78,000 views. Compare that to the Silent No More Foundation's Facebook followers at only 5,000. You can really see the reach and the difference that we have here.
Hey Z-Pack, it's your boy Z-Dog MD. Okay, I am getting so tired. So tired of reading story after story after story after story of healthcare workers being attacked, being abused, verbally and physically and emotionally by our system and the patients that we are taking oaths to protect. And we've talked before about the culture that's led to this, and the fact that we're treating hospitals as hotels, and the fact that we're not treating mental illness, and the fact that we have an opioid epidemic, and the fact that increasingly we are managed as commodities instead of human beings. And it is pushing our resilience to the limit, and we're breaking. And we hear about the nurse who died, or who's in critical care after being shot in South Carolina. We hear about EMS workers attacked in the Pacific Northwest. And now the story out of Baton Rouge General Hospital, where a nurse was attacked by a patient on a behavioral health unit. And the way we're piecing this together is from press reports and from private messages that have been sent to me by people who are connected to this case and this person, but it's still not clear, and a lot of this is speculation. But even the overall arch of this re-points out how we are devaluing our frontline healthcare professionals, putting them in harm's way, and expecting our healers to make the ultimate sacrifice in service for their patients, to die in service for their patients. So this nurse, who was very well respected on this unit, was attacked by a patient, sustained a leg injury and apparently a head injury. Now, there's conflicting data here. The press says she finished her shift, which everybody agrees that I've heard from. She finished the shift that she had, and then went to the emergency department, according to the press, that evening, was evaluated and sent out. Some have told me that no, she didn't go to the emergency department. Some have told me that they made her chart what happened before they let her go to the emergency department. But everybody seems to agree that she heroically finished her shift. Why? Because that's why we go into this, to help other people. We don't abandon our colleagues and our patients, even at personal risk. So she was evaluated, sent back. Now, this is where the stories are conflicting. Over the next few days, some have told me that she went in and out of the ER and was sent away because they evaluated her complaints of anxiety and discomfort and sent her home thinking nothing was wrong. Ultimately, and we don't know if this is really true, what the press says is in a week, she came to the ER, was evaluated, and rapidly deteriorated and died. And the autopsy preliminary, and they're still working on this, and it's hard without all the data, showed blood clot in the right leg apparently, and pulmonary embolism. So it seems to be, if you're putting it together, blood clot in the leg, went to the lungs, ultimately ended her life. Now, people who understand how you end up getting blood clots can understand that there's Virchow's triad, and part of the triad is injury to the blood vessels. So if this nurse sustained a leg injury, it's entirely possible that that led to a blood clot, or even if she wasn't walking and stayed off her feet, led to a blood clot, ultimately the complication of pulmonary embolism and death. Whether or not it was blown off in the ER, whether or not she was evaluated correctly, we don't know. It doesn't really matter. What matters is we've lost one of our frontline healthcare workers, our colleagues, our tribe, to violence again. Again. And it happens again and again and again. And our thoughts go out to her family and to her colleagues and her patients. Now, people affiliated with her institution and who have messaged me have said that they feel unsafe, that their concerns are blown off, that that this was sort of destined to happen, and that they don't think anything good is going to come of it, even in the future. And this is what we have this Silent No More hashtag for. We cannot shut up about this. And when you guys send me these articles, it's so exhausting to see how much horrible stuff is going on in the world and how little is being done. And someone actually said, oh, it's finally showing up in the press. that this happened, right? So our job, Z-Pack, is to never let people forget, to keep making noise, to keep advocating for safer units, for better mental health care, for better support for our frontline clinicians, for better security in hospitals, and support for our security staff who are also suffering with the moral injury of not being able to keep people safe because they don't have the tools and the resources and the autonomy to do it. We need to put pressure on our legal system and our law enforcement, which is already under their own pressure, to actually prosecute these cases and to take them seriously in a way that really isn't done because they're all overwhelmed as well. And we need to take the victim seriously when something happens. When we're caring for them, we don't blow them off. We don't let them finish their shift. We don't make them chart. We take it deadly serious. They are one of our comrades, right? So here's the call to action. Share this video. Keep making noise. If you know something about this that I don't, please message me and let me know, because we want to get the story right, because it's hard for the press and it's hard for us to get all the information. But I think we have enough of a thread to understand what's going on, and we need to hold our institutions accountable. We need to hold our patients who we're caring for accountable. And we also need to hold ourselves accountable for caring for our fellow colleagues and taking this stuff deadly serious. Whether you're a nurse manager, whether you're a hospital CEO, we're all in this together. And treat each other as such. If you want a longer discussion about this stuff, join our Secure Tribe. The link will be here, because that's where we talk about this stuff in a completely uncensored and off-the-rails way, which is, in fact, the most authentic way you can do it, and there's nowhere else that's happening. All right? Please share this video. Leave your comment. Leave your stories. Send me messages, and we out.
What we see with this video is a very specific call to action. This video was published earlier this month. This nurse passed away. Her funeral was about a week and a half ago. And if you look on the Silent No More Facebook page, they have a link to an article that talks about what happened to her. There's no call to action. There's nothing about what you can do or what you should do. Versus ZDoggMD has a very specific call to action. He also targets multiple segments. You know, we've seen how on the Silent No More Facebook page they talk about legislation going on in different states. ZDoggMD specifically mentions several different career fields. He also makes sure he uses current industry buzzwords like the term healer. In conclusion, I think it's pretty clear that the Silent No More Foundation is not doing that well on social media. There's a platform that they've completely abandoned, so they're really only engaging with followers on two platforms, Facebook and Twitter, and they can do a significantly better job on both of those. They're not targeting demographics very well. They could be targeting micro segments much more. We're also not seeing a whole lot of interactions. More they're just posting information from elsewhere, kind of a copy type post. There's not really a whole lot of original content generation. Versus ZDoggMD, he's targeting a lot of different segments. He's targeting different career fields within healthcare, different geographic areas. He gives you very clear call to action, and we're really not seeing that with the Silent No More Foundation. So I would give the Silent No More Foundation a fail for their social media campaign. And there's a lot of examples that ZDoggMD has done that they could follow that would make their social media campaign much more successful.